'Cause the truth is, being an adult kinda sucks. Anything that anybody says to you, it'll always cut through. Anything that anybody says to you, it'll stick to you like glue. Yeah, that's what words will do to you. I feel like I'm not good enough. Every time that we talk, I suffer from imposter syndrome, but nobody would ever think so. Do you? Do you know what you've done to me? You say it's my fault to suffer from imposter syndrome, but you would say I played the victim. There's a lot of ego going round that's making a lot of room for second guessing.
Alexa, stop. So I'm just going to fill up the live a little bit before we get into Carly's story. And I just want to update with Alex, the soldier, who I put an appeal out for today. He has been found deceased, unfortunately. It's looking self-inflicted. And he was a serving soldier for the UK. He was somebody who had been abroad and who had fought for our country. It's a really sad day. And though now is not the time, at some point in his memory we will highlight what is going on with the veterans and what is going on with men's mental health, and especially in the army and the services. It's devastating news tonight. And he was the guy who I put up in the appeal today. 30 years of age. Such a loss. Such a loss. Sorry, I'm a couple of minutes late today. I was trying to get Tori to bed. I was trying to talk to a friend. I was trying to literally run round. And obviously today's been quite busy online. Yeah, completely condolences to his family. And respect to Alex as well. It's just tragic, isn't it? And it's obviously when we do this missing persons appeal, we always hope that it's going to come back with a positive outcome, but it hasn't been tonight. Can we just put some blue hearts in the chat for Alex, please? Even another one. I got my medicine for the hay fever today. I got what Faith told me to get, the tablets, and I got a nasal spray thing as well. He's been found deceased, yeah, this evening. So, it's really sad. Right, I'm just going to blow my nose quickly before we start, so I'm not sneezing the whole live again. What's that light on? Oh, that's better. Sorry. Oh. Right, so can everyone repost the live for me, please, so we can get to as many people as we possibly can? Hello, everyone. Yeah, can we just repost it as much as you can? And share it to anyone you think may find interesting. We are going to talk about Carly's story today, from Ireland, and we are going to have her mum and her partner Owen on, who both of them absolutely loved and adored her, and they both have obviously her story to tell. They are her voice after obviously Carly's no longer here, so it's a really important story, and we'll be seeing not only Carly's story or getting to know Carly a little bit more, but obviously what we can do to help with awareness and going forward, like what a plan of action would be to kind of to help with justice maybe. So that's what we'll be doing tonight. Hi everyone coming in. Hope everyone's okay. It's been such a full day again today, isn't it? I hope everyone's had a good day. It's been a lot today. I forgot to call my mum back as well after that weird call we did on live. I'll have to remember to phone her after the live. Let's look at Casey's here. Thanks, Miss Icon. Hi Casey, are you okay?
Hi Hailey, how are you?
Good, thank you. Is Owen coming in?
I'd say he is, yeah. I'd probably
Okay,
give him a
cool.
minute.
Yeah, I spoke to him yesterday. You can either have the camera off today, or you can have the camera off, on or on,
Oh
if it's
yeah,
up to
sorry,
you.
I wasn't sure. I'm not 100% on these. One, give me two. Oh yeah, there we go. All right, good, there we go.
It's completely up to you, whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, that's fine. Hi.
Yeah, you're all right.
Yeah, I'm
Hiya.
fine.
So Owen will be here in a minute. I don't know if before Owen comes, if you want to fill us in a bit of like on Kylie's childhood, because obviously he wasn't around for that part.
Yeah. So Carly, she was my second born.
Yeah.
She was born on the 27th of June, 1998. She was born very quickly. But she was a lovely. She was a very big baby. She was 9 too, actually, when she was born. And the nurse handed her to me and said, "Congratulations on your baby boy." And so it was about 2 hours later they realized she was a girl because she was so big. But yeah, she was a lovely little thing. She was very smart, very outgoing. Even as a child, she was very outgoing. Yeah, she was just a lovely little girl. And then as a mother, I suppose with girls we go through phases, the relationship changes as they get older, do you know, that kind of way. So like when she hit the teens, of course you have the teen part of it. But we became very close then as the years went on. Literally everyone used to think we were like sisters, do you know.
I love that. Can you tell us a bit about your family, like where you come from and like how many of you there is and kind of the family that makes
Yes.
up?
So I'm from Ireland. I'm from a small town in Kilrush in Ireland. When I was young, there's five of us all together, but when I was young, my parents split up. We were actually all separated. There was two of us sent into a home, two of us were fostered, and one was fostered out to another family. So we were all split up as kids. Um, yeah, so it's kind of like I had a kind of a traumatic childhood. I grew up kind of from pillar to post.
Yeah.
I actually lost my brother there in May of this year, 28th of
Okay.
May. My eldest brother, he was 50. So me and him were always kind of together growing up, but we lived with different family members. It's only now actually in the last few years that the rest of us are kind of getting, back in touch and that, which is nice. It's lovely.
Yeah.
So then I ended up at 15 falling in love with
Yeah.
a guy 2 years older than me. My idea of happiness was the white picket fence and having a lovely family and having my own home and that. Left home at 18, moved in, had my first son Michael, who also passed away in 2016 from suicide.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that that was relationship was pretty wasn't great. So I ended up splitting from their father. So Carly and Michael would have been from the first husband.
Okay.
Um, he passed away when he was 34, and she actually found him when she was 9. She found him dead. He had passed away from a clot. So yeah, so I have my other husband now. We have a girl. She's 13, but we also lost a little girl to Edward syndrome in 2016 as well.
You've had
So
so much loss and so much tragedy, and I'm so sorry. That's 3 children. I'm so sorry. I can never understand how you feel, but I'm so sorry for your loss.
yeah, thank you, Hailey. Yeah. So yeah, I've my husband and my youngest daughter now, and we now have the two grandchildren with us as well. So
Yeah, they're
yeah,
Carly's children, aren't they?
they're Carly's children. Yeah. So it's basically, I think it's basically Carly and Michael in reverse all over again.
Yeah. Oh, I love that idea. I love that they're coming back to you. It's so
Yeah.
sad.
Mm,
You were
yeah.
talking a bit about your relationship with Carly. I've got 3 daughters, so I know how it changes all the time. You were talking about how like the changes in your relationship as she kind of got to teenage years. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, just kind of, the teenage years come in, and then it was kind of a little bit rebellious. She was never a bad kid. She never got into trouble or anything. She just, I suppose, with everything that had happened previously with losing her dad and that, and then, I was in a new relationship and she had to get used to that, and all kind of like having another father figure,
Yeah.
in her life, and that was difficult. That was difficult for her, of course.
Yeah.
And he also had another family as well, so it was kind of like there was a mixed, of boys and girls. So yeah, but she was never a bad teenager. Like she was never like that. I think our relationship I think that happens with daughters and mothers. You go through that phase. And I think girls can be bitches anyway. you know, especially
Girls
when
can
they're
be particularly. The
teenagers.
hormones are
Compared to
immense.
the
I've got
boys,
three
yeah.
girls. It's a
Compared to the
lot.
boys, like, because I had at one stage I had 4 teenagers in the house and I had a toddler. So like
Yeah.
I had a stepson, a stepdaughter, and I also had my daughter and my son. So and they
Yeah.
were all teenagers. So when they were quiet, you knew they were up to no good. Do you know what I mean? You had to be one step ahead all the time. You know, they were always up to something. They were always up to something.
So I think
But
Owen's
she
here. If you want to
was
request
in.
Owen, come up. Owen's here. So if you want to request Owen, just come straight up. And if you're not ready yet, come up when you are ready. That's absolutely fine.
All right,
Sorry.
okay. So yeah, so just like as the years went on, then you know, she wasn't. I couldn't say that she was ever a bad girl, but she was 16 then, and that's when she met her ex-partner. You
Okay.
know, so a kind of
Okay.
somebody else takes over then. You know, somebody
Yeah,
else becomes
100%.
their mentor and whatever. You know, you kind of have
Yeah.
to take a step back. You know.
So her partner she met at 16. Hi, Owen. I hope you're okay.
Oh, how
He
are
was.
you?
Well,
Hiya. He was older, wasn't he? He was older. There was a power kind of dynamic.
yeah, there was nearly 10 years between both of them. You know,
Okay.
so yeah, it was kind of. I suppose with Carly, I suppose I'd look at it at 16, you know, losing her dad,
Yeah.
looking for that kind of father figure, I suppose, you know, and somebody to look after her and mind her. And that was one thing with her and her brother. She always like looked at her brother to mind her. So like when her brother passed away, Carly took it very, very hard. You know, she took it very hard, you know, because he was her protector, her brother, you know. But yeah, so when she met this guy, yeah, it was kind of like, and I wouldn't have known, like I wouldn't have seen, you know, signs in the very beginning.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't have seen the signs. I do remember at one stage after Michael died, she had been gone 17, and I do remember coming down to the house one day and she had bruises on her arms, and I said, "Why
Okay.
are you all bruised like?" And then she just said, "Oh, we were just play fighting, Matt, you know."
Mm.
But as the years kind of went on, I kind of started seeing exactly like exactly going on, you know.
We do in the beginning. We hide it, don't we? Because obviously it's her first big relationship. You don't know any different,
Mm.
and you don't want to upset people around you who you know love you. So, would you say with that it was like physically abusive? Was it like verbally abusive as well, and like controlling, or would you?
Oh yeah, I mean the verbal abuse. I mean, I have mountains of messages like from her on my phone, like from verbal abuse. Like I mean things that like he would be saying to her. He always knew how to kind of to get at her. So it was the children, you know. You know he would it was the kids were it was his weapon. So like he
Yeah.
adored the children, adored them, you know. But like I mean, as the years went on, and I could see it. I remember sitting in the car one day, and I remember seeing her going into the shopping center, and like she didn't have any children at this stage. And I was looking at her, I was thinking to myself, "Oh my God in heaven!" Like I'm looking at myself when I was,
Yeah.
you know, and I can't do anything about it. Like I all I can do is be there for her. But the one thing that happened was, um, you know, he all her friends were gone, you know,
Yeah.
as the years were going
Isolated.
on, slowly but surely. And the one thing that he wanted was me and her not to have. I like we had numerous arguments, but at the same time, I was always in the background. Like I would never, ever not walk away from her. Do you know what I mean?
That's
And
the
that was
thing. They isolate you, don't you, from everyone who cares
yeah,
about you. Your parents. You would have been his biggest threat because
yeah,
you're the
yeah,
one that knows the best, who
yeah,
loves her the most, who
yeah,
loves the kids.
yeah,
So that's the biggest tool of the abuser. They always do it.
yeah.
So how long was she with him? Well, how long were they together? Because they had the two kids together, didn't they?
So
How long
yeah,
was the
so on and
relationship?
off, Haley, off more than on, I would say. Together
Yeah.
9 years. The relationship went on for 9 years. Like I said, more so off than on, because when she fell pregnant, and I like when Carly before she became pregnant, if I can explain, like with the mental health issues and the
Oh, yeah.
addiction issues, you know, like I wouldn't have known the extent of Carly's addiction
Hmm.
before she had her children, and it wasn't prevalent. Like it wasn't prevalent.
Yeah.
She was probably taking tablets, you know, to
Okay.
whatever to kill the pain for whatever, because she suffered so bad after Michael died.
Yeah.
And there was issues there, like you know, going back to her dad and that. And like I said, Carly never dealt with those, you know. even though I tried to get her counselling, but she never actually dealt with her brother's death. She said,
100.
often said to me, she said, Ma, I can accept my father's death, she said, but I will never ever, she said, get over Michael's death, because she
Yeah.
said he left me, you know. So that was kind of always playing in her head. So I wouldn't have been aware like of the problems. I did know, and I do know that he himself was dealing. I do know that.
Right. Okay.
So I suppose that was something that her kept her
Yeah.
habit going,
Looked
you
into the
know.
relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so before the kids, I remember like how many times Carly came to me and said to me, I don't want to be here anymore, ma. I just don't want to be in this world anymore. Like she would say it to
Yeah.
me a lot. We often had conversations, and I remember one conversation where she said, I just want to go from this world. And I said, look, I can't lose another child. We were actually crying in the car, like, because I was saying to her, like, I can't lose. And even though I've lost her, but
So
sorry.
sorry.
Um, yeah,
Take a minute if you need to. If you need to take a minute, please take a minute because I
no, it's
understand. Like,
fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Yeah. So like before she had, I remember going back to Michael, and I remember sitting at the grave, and I remember begging him, please give her something that will keep her on this earth.
yeah.
And we went away for a break in Waterford. It was 6 years ago, actually. It's 6 years in July this year.
Okay.
Um, and then she found out she was pregnant a month later, and
Okay.
it was
Was that
like
her first pregnancy?
that
The
was her
first
first
one?
pregnancy, and it was like, oh my God, like this is it for her now. You know, this is it. And she
Yeah.
so much embraced it, and like her baby was born, and she adored her, and you know, but yeah, she so kind of shortly after the first baby was born, she was literally 3 months old. They split,
Okay.
the end of the relationship, and he actually went off and got his own place. But the abuse didn't stop. I mean, he called the social workers. I don't know how many times he called the social workers on her. One particular time he called the social workers and actually told the social workers that his 8-month-old daughter had an STD.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Right.
And Carly actually had to bring the child, down to the doctor. And the doctor said, I've never seen the likes of this in my life, he said. And I remember the social worker ringing, and I ate the social worker on the phone. I said, what is wrong with you people?
It's awful.
You know?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so the abuse was continuing. And then, of course, you know yourself, they reel him back in. You
Yeah.
know, so it was reel back in. Um, and then they would break up and then reel back in again. It was just constant, constant, constant. And then where we were living, she literally lived across the road from us. So that was her
Okay.
house. We lived here, and she lived literally across the road. So like she was over every day, and she'd come in, and you know, first thing you'd hear is ma. Even her little one started saying ba, like when she was very young, because the two of them would be counting up the stairs, you know. But yeah. So then they'd split. They'd split for a good while. They'd split for over a year, and then they got back together. And they were
Okay.
literally only back together about 4 weeks. And the next thing she told me, she was pregnant with the second one. I
Okay.
wasn't, I wasn't impressed, needless to say. But
Yeah.
anyway, you know, she was happy about it, and she was making a go of it again. But that broke literally while she was pregnant, and
Okay.
Carly suffered very bad with prenatal depression, very
Yeah.
bad, to the point where I spent days and weeks convincing her at 6 months pregnant not to abort the child, because in
Right.
her head that was the only way, you know, because she kept saying it to me, and I kept saying, don't make a decision based now, wait, you know.
Yeah.
So she did, and then she had her son, and I was there for his birth, and I watched him come into the world, and literally within weeks the relationship had broke down again,
Okay.
because I got like Carly would be at home and he'd be there, and she'd be ringing me to come down so she could have a shower.
Wow. Okay.
He was literally doing nothing. I mean, I went down one evening at 5 o'clock in the evening, and it was cold, and he comes down the stairs in her dressing gown at 5 o'clock in the evening, and like I'm looking at him thinking, look at the stadia. What are you fucking doing? Like,
Yeah.
no fire in the house. She's here with a young baby, and you're up in bed like at 5 o'clock in the evening. Get up.
Yeah.
But like when you're talking to people like this, it's like you're talking to scarecrows. It's like there's nothing in there. Do you know?
Yeah.
There's nothing in there. Like it's like you're talking to them, but it's actually going straight through them.
Yeah.
They're just looking at you, you know. So no matter how many times, I mean, there was one particular time where he wouldn't get up and get food for the infant, and he said, "If you don't get the food, I'm going ringing her stepfather." And then he got it. Like her stepfather would go down, he'd have timber got or whatever. He'd ask him to bring it in. No,
Absolutely terrible. I'm
he
so
did.
sorry she went through that.
He did nothing. He did nothing for her. When she spent then when that broke up, then we were actually moving house. My husband's sister had left a house to him 2 years previous, so we were actually moving in. So we were just moving over the road from her, and she was actually going to go into the house that we were leaving.
Okay.
So, but she had to wait for that to come up. She actually spent 2 years here with us with the two kids. So she was gone from that relationship for over 2 years.
Okay.
You know. And I suppose that's when, leading up then, that's when I became aware of Carly's addiction problem then. You know, I became more aware of it and what was going on. And when she went back to live on her own, that's when it kind of really, really got her then. She was hooked, you know. So
Can we ask like what her addiction was to? Can we just ask just to kind of make sense for the story?
okay.
Okay, that's fine. And I always say, like, I've been in addiction before. I've been 4 years clean, and I always think it's the people that are so hurt by society and literally the people that care the most that get caught up in addiction, because it's a coping mechanism, right? And when you've got children and you want to be the best you can be, and you've got so much loss, so like, there's no judgment here at all for Carly.
No, and
like honestly,
really, I've been one of these people. I don't. It's like when it comes to addiction and people have their own opinions about it. Nobody knows about addiction until you're in addiction.
100%.
Like I'm a smoker. And if somebody took my cigarettes from me today, if I wasn't ready to give up my cigarettes, God only knows what I'd do to get a fag.
Yeah.
If you're not ready for something, you know what I mean? If you're not ready to give up something, then you're not going to give it up. So people with their opinions, like there's no shame around, for me, there's no shame around whether my daughter was in addiction or whether she wasn't in addiction. It doesn't define her as a person. That's not who she was. Carly was a mother. She was a daughter. She was a sister. She was an auntie. She was a cousin. She was a beautiful soul. She would share, you know, she'd have two fags and she would share a fag on the street with somebody. Do you know what I mean? That's the type of person she was. So it doesn't define who she was. It just is something that's in people. Like there's addiction in my family through the whole lot. Like my own husband is in recovery, you know? Oh, like, I mean, it doesn't define a person. It's just part of who they are, like everything else, you know.
I 100% agree. The world is so hard. There's so much loss. There's so much pain, and a lot of people, like, who are really like good, empathetic people, struggle to cope through that. Like the world hurts a lot. So I think it's and obviously she went into rehab. She was trying so hard to get clean, to get better. She was clean. She was doing so well. So I think that's what I respect the most, because addiction is the hardest thing to outrun. It's so hard. It's hard.
She wanted, you know, look, it took a bit of time, but, you know, like everything else, you know, there's some come to that point where they know that they can't be that, and, you know, any longer. They can't live like that any longer. It took her a little bit of time, but she got there eventually. She got there with the help of her family, with the help of me, with the help of her stepfather, with the help of her sister. You know, she had a good source of people with her, you know, backing her and behind her. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she did. She got there eventually. It's not like, you know, people have this perception of addiction that it comes from broken homes or it comes from one parent families. It doesn't. It doesn't. Anyone's child can be addicted. Anyone's child, you know. So it's not just. It's not. Yeah. It's, look. My husband is in the rooms for a long time. He's there 11 years, and you know he's seen a lot of people coming and going from the rooms, and you know it's in every, and these days it's every second household, regardless.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it doesn't discriminate when it picks someone, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Any of us at any time.
No, and like I did addiction studies in school. I went back to school when I was when I was in my 40s, and I did addiction studies, and I worked in mental health for 7 years. So both of them go together, regardless. They both go together.
So once Carly moved into her own home, she was out of the relationship. She had both the children. Can we just ask, like, what kind of mother was she? Because I heard she's an amazing mum. Like, and obviously she probably gets that from you. But what was she like?
Well, you see, there used to be this thing. The way it's like the grannies say yes, but the mother say no. But it was kind of reversed for us. Yeah, the mother said yes, but the granny said no. Do you know what I mean? No, she adored, like, and because the first girl, like the first child was born, like she was mine, kind of, because she was always with me.
Yeah.
But when the son came along, like, he was hers. People used to say to her uptown, like, I thought you had two kids, Carly. And she was like, I do, but my mother has one of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that was our thing. Do you know, that the girl always kind of stayed with me, and that, but yeah, she just, like, you could see the love she had for her children. You could see that she wanted to be a better mother. And I'm not saying that it was easy. And even when she was in addiction, I was there. I was in the background. She didn't purposely put her children in any danger whatsoever. And they never were in any danger, because literally I was always in the background. And if Carly found that it was too difficult, she would always ring me, and she would say, Ma, look, I'm not feeling it this week, or can you help me out this week? And I did at one stage when she got very bad into it, which lasted around 2 months. The children were with me. She gave the children to me. She asked me, and I took them, and they stayed here in this house for those 8 weeks leading up to her going into rehab. So
that shows strength as a mother, to be able to phone your mum and say, look, I need some help right now. Like, it shows how much she loved them, and that she realised, like, right now I'm struggling. But she knew their safest place for you. I just love that about her. I just love how strong
that was the thing about Carly. Like, if she knew she was struggling, that was the thing. She, me and her had that relationship where it was always like, things didn't have to be said all the time. She knew I knew. I knew that she knew I knew. So it would take a little bit of time, and then she would come around and she would say to me, she would say, look, Ma, I'm having a bad day, or I'm having a bad week, or this is going on, or that's going on, and she would ask for help. And she always knew that I was there. Like, Carly would ring me 10 times a day just to talk about something stupid, because she'd say to me, I say to her, do you know what, I'm getting out a burn order against you. And she'd be like, did I phone you too much, Ma? But she'd say to me, like, you're my best friend,
I love that.
So, like, she told me everything, we talked about everything.
I love that. So when we get to the stage where Owen comes into the story, really, and that's when Carly went into rehab. And I love the fact, I think Owen's probably seen the video of how you speak about Owen, and how you speak about the hope you had for him, and your daughter, and how he was the first person to love your daughter properly. I love that. And with that, we'll introduce Owen. Do you want to introduce yourself, Owen?
Yeah. Hi guys, I'm Owen. Obviously, I'm Carly's boyfriend. I still call her my girlfriend, obviously, today, because she still is my girlfriend, obviously. But yeah, I just want to get, like, with this story, like, me and Joanne have been talking back and forth for so long, just because of the picture that had been painted of, it was addiction, it was all this, and that was what we kind of had to say, where it wasn't the truth, like. And that, I'll never forget when Joanne released the video the other day. You see my face in the video. I was just so happy, because it painted Carly in such a different frame. The way we had to speak about her death, and the way we had to put it down as, well, not put it down, but we just said it was addiction. But now that it's not that it makes it any easier, but there's a bit more relief around it now that people are actually kind of seeing what she went through, and how much of a kind soul she was, that she didn't want to die. And I don't know, it makes it a bit easier. But as I say, like, all I'm trying to do is, I know I can't be much. I don't really be able to do much for the family, but whenever I get a chance, I go up. Whenever I have any free time, I'm up there with them and their family, and, like, I see them. Like, I'd rather be, I know it sounds terrible, but when I'm off, my parents don't even see me. I'm like, I want to go straight up. I want to go straight up to Kilrush to see the kids and the family, and yeah, it's so hard. And my biggest admiration is for Joanne, because I don't know how she stays going. I don't know how she stays going with everything, like, all the loss she's had and everything that's gone on in her life, and now she's raising 2 kids again. Like, so that's why I always say I don't want anyone to not feel sorry for me or anything. I think Joanne should get all of the good messages and all of that, because she's such an amazing person, and we have a bond that most families, most mother and son or any family would give anything for. Like we are on the phone probably 3 times a day talking to her, talking to the kids. Like it's an everyday occurrence. It's not just like
Even
once
when
or
Carly was alive, do you remember when Carly was alive and we'd been like, me and Owen would have spoken on the phone the night before or something. So Owen would have given me all the news. Carly would have rang me the next day and it'd be like, I know Owen told me. And then she'd be over here and she'd be like, what do you two be talking about, like, at all? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he'd have
I
all
love
the news
that.
given. Yeah,
It's
but it
so
was like,
special.
it was Hailey. I mean, it was instantaneous. It was just instant. Like, even me and his mother, we went into the room like a week after, like we had gone over to the rehab center, and we had to go into the room. So us two were called in on our own, like, and the counsellor asked us, is there anything we can do for ye? And the two of us said it. Could you keep him for another 3 months? Both of us like said it together. But like it was just instantaneous. And even like now when both of them came out and then we got to know each other as a family, like as both families, like we found out things like Owen's dad shares the same birthday as our daughter, our youngest daughter. He used to call his wife Bridie, and my husband always used to call me Bridie. It's just it's so weird. Like,
there was a connection there long before it happened.
like long before it happened.
Before it happened.
Long before it happened, you know.
I love how you're still like so linked by your love for Carly and just this relationship. And I watched Owen. I was watching him a little bit, and the first time I saw his face light up when you described Carly as a mum, and his face just lit up in pride, and I was like, it means so much. Obviously, the connection you have. Like, Owen, can you tell us like what your impression was of Carly? You met her like obviously in a bad time for both of you. What did you fall in love with about Carly?
Well, the first thing was obviously her eyes. She had these eyes, right? And it was like they were the exact same as a sunflower. So like if you looked into them, it looked exactly like a sunflower. Like it's the first thing I noticed. But other than that, like it was just her personality and everything that she done. Like it was when I first went into rehab. Obviously, that's where I met her. I met her in rehab. Like, and I remember when I got in that day, and she was the first person. Everyone else was kind of looking at me and being like, "Oh, there's a new lad in the house now. Will we go over?" She before anyone else just ran straight over and interrogated me for like 2 hours. I was like, Jesus, this one's a bit full on. But as soon as that conversation happened, I was like, oh my God. Like I know this might sound weird or cringy or whatever, but I was like, there is something, I didn't know it was love at the time, but I was like, there's something so different with this person. Like, I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but I was like, I just want to be around her. And even when I used to love watching her speak, like if she was talking to someone else and like just watching her from the side, looking at her, because I don't know, it was just an absolute instant connection for me and her as well, because eventually I built up the courage to be like, I think you're beautiful and all this. It took me days because I'm very awkward with that type of stuff. Like, and I kind of explained it to her, and I was hoping she'd say it to me first. Like I was like kind of hinting it, but no. But impression wise, like she was the most kindest person you'd ever meet in your life. Like even the counselors when we were in rehab, like they used to say that when they'd like nobody would ever ask a counselor how they are, because like that's their job to ask you how you are. So like our counselor and my counselor at the time in Bushy Park said that like after every meeting and like after any time they ever spoke with a group and Carly was in it, she would go out of her way to go up to the counselor at the end of the meeting and be like, how are you doing? Like that's how caring she was. Like she'd actually ask the counselors how they were. So if that doesn't say enough about Carly and who she was, then I don't know what does. But it was just everything. Like I can't even put my finger on what, like, because you can't just name one thing. I used to just love sitting there and her laugh when she laughed. It was a little, it was wheezy, and then you just take off laughing, just looking at her laugh.
Yeah, she had such a dry personality about her.
Yeah.
Carly could be telling you something and you would be in stitches, and she'd be looking at you as if to say like, "What's so funny?" Because she didn't think she was funny. Do you know that kind of way? But she'd be smiling. She had that smile. It was like, and when she laughed, it was such a hearty laugh. Really, really hearty laugh. Like
the wheeze from the cigarettes. She'd
let a roar out. Like she'd actually let a roar out. You know, when she'd be laughing, and her laugh was just unreal.
Yeah.
I love that. How does that feel, Joanne, to hear him describe your daughter and to know that someone truly loved her outside of your family?
It was just like I used to watch him, Hailey, here. Like they used to be here in the house, and for 9 years, like I looked to Carly for those few months, and I thought to myself, like I hugged on after like a week. You know, he came up to me. I was over for the family day, and he came in to me and he sat down with me, and it was like, because every time we used to see him, the smile would be from ear to ear on both of them. And we knew something was going on, like, but they hadn't actually said it. But he came into me and he just said to me, he said, look, Joanne, he said, I know I only know your daughter a couple of weeks, he said, but I actually am in love with her. And I said, well, look, you know what? I said, you've come to me. I said, not many young men would do that. I mean, he was 23,
Yeah.
23, like, you know, and I said, look, I'm not going to stand in your way. You just have to be careful because obviously, you know, coming out of rehab and that, both of them, you know. But when I met Owen, I actually said this to his mother. He will never, I said, do drugs again. Never, I said. He just had it. He got it, you know. My daughter, on the other hand, wasn't quite there, and I knew that myself, you know. But I knew that Owen was strong enough to kind of help her along. Do you know what I mean? And that eventually she would come around because, like, they'd made plans to. She was going moving down. Their parents, Owen's parents, were giving him a granny flat that they actually had built on to the house. So the granny flat was going to be theirs. The kids were enrolled in school, you know. So her plan was to go in July. She was leaving here, but the biggest part for her was me. And she used to say to me in the car, like, "You will come down now for a cup of tea, man." I was like, "Carly, like, you're an hour and a half away. Like, I can't just like pop down for a cup of tea. Like, why, man? Like, why can't you?" And I was like, "Because you're an hour and a half away." But that attachment, you know, she had that. Like, it wasn't that she was kind of like she wasn't that she had second thoughts. It was, you know, coming out to something new and starting something new, and without me being there, you know, all the time. Do you know what I mean? But like watching the two of them, I mean, I used to go out the back and the two of them would be out the back and they'd be sitting down. She'd be sitting on his lap. I never saw that with Carly. I never saw that. You know, I never saw Carly to lie down the couch and cuddle up. I never saw that. And be relaxed and be happy.
Yeah.
You know, in those last few months, Hailey, was probably the most I ever seen my daughter to laugh and smile. Because I'd watched my daughter for 9 years with a broken heart from one thing or another. And more often than not, the relationship that she had been in. You know, I watched my daughter cry so many times, and I sat with my daughter so many times, you know, crying. And this time it was different. This time it was good. This time she actually knew what it was like to be loved. She actually was trying to find something wrong with him. I remember her saying that. Like, she actually said it. I can't find anything wrong with him. There has to be something wrong with him. And I was like, why are you trying to find something wrong with him? You know, there's nobody saying he's perfect, but compared to what she knew, you know, this was all new to her. Do you know what I mean? But she embraced it. She embraced it. They both did. They both embraced it. You know, and it was so nice just to know. And even now, like, that part of it, it's just nice to know that she knew what true love was about, you know.
Your family now as well, so you've gained so much from the relationship.
Yeah, I find comfort in the fact that for those last few months, she got to know what true love was about. You know, she got to know what it was like to have somebody in her life that loved her, not just, you know, not for any reason, but just for her, you know.
I love that.
Yeah, and it does give me great comfort to know that she actually found that before she was gone. And still has it, you know, and still has it. I mean, he could have walked away anytime, you know, and I said that to him.
Yeah, he could have, yeah.
He could have walked away anytime. He could have gone off into the sunset and lived his life. But he didn't, you know. I mean, I actually put up a post about it. Like, you know, he didn't have to love those kids. He didn't have to stick around. You know, he didn't. But he chooses to do it himself, which says a lot about him, you know.
100%. What is your relationship, Owen, with Callie's children?
Oh, incredible! I just love I know I love the two of them so much, but I have a special bond with the little lad. Like, we get on so well. Like, even like it shows, like, he will not leave Joanne's side ever. The only place he'll go if he's going somewhere overnight is to me. He will stay at my house and he'll sleep with me, but he will not go to anyone else. Like, Joanne's tried to send him a few places, and he'll just go nuts until he gets home, because obviously he's so attached to Joanne now. Like, but it's so amazing to know that I have that bond with him, that he trusts me, and like, he comes to me, sleeps with me, and we have so much fun. But like, I know I'm not their father, and I'm never going to try to be their father, because it's not. I didn't do it. It wasn't me, but that's not going to change the fact that I'm going to try. Like, I do see them as my own kids. Obviously, I don't get to be there as much as for for them as much as I would like to. Like, but like whenever I'm off, I go up and see them. I take them off shopping. I try to get them some gifts and stuff. I know it's not about gifts, but I like, you know, kids, they love toys, so I just try to get them a few toys whenever I'm up there. But I'm on FaceTime to them every night of the week, like every night. Every single night of the week, 7 days a week. I'm on FaceTime to Joanne and the kids every night. There's and like if I do, I might miss one night maybe during the week. That would be it. Like that's how much of a connection is there. Like it's I see them as my own kids. It's like Joanne is like my second mother, if not my main mother. Like you know, obviously, like I can't just I don't think words can put it into. But I can't put it into words like how much how much love I have for that family. And I know you said I had a choice every day, but like I could have left or anything like that. But like I kind of live my life by like what would Carly want me to do, and I had a connection with them kids as soon as I met them. Like that wasn't just something that was built over time. Like I got on with him so well straight away, and me and the little lad, we just got on so well. And I love him, he loves me. Obviously, I see him as my own children, even though they're not. But that's just it's an amazing bond. Like obviously, I don't really know how to put it into words, but it's just I have so much love for the family, and I have so much love for the kids, and I don't care what goes on, and no matter what else goes on in my life, like it's never going to fade away. I'm never going to leave the family. Like I want to do everything I can to be there. All I want and now out of it is to help Joanne, because I know she's the one that has the most stress at the minute. So that's why I try to ring to maybe talk to the kids for a few minutes to give her a break. When I come up, I just need to give her a break and take the kids away from her for a while, because she doesn't get any rest. She gets no break. So I only as much as I can, I go up and I'll help out. But yeah, I don't think I can put into words how much I love that family and the kids.
I think we could tell as soon as I asked you, because you become so animated and you always jumped up like, I love them. And I think watching Joanne's face as well, like she's backing everything you say. And I think you've got 1,500 people in here crying their eyes out, and women just absolutely falling in love with Owen's reaction to your family. I think it's beautiful. I don't think I've seen a case like this before, where you were so new to each other and you've been drawn together by tragedy, but you've overcome that with love. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I honestly think it's so beautiful. And how lucky you are to have found each other out of this. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I say that. Yeah, I've lost, but I've also gained in another way. You know? So.
We are going to get to the part of the case, which obviously is going to be quite hard to talk about, because we get into the part where Carly had obviously left rehab. She was doing so well. Owen, if you just want to talk about a little bit, you had come out of rehab, both of you, and what were your plans for the future, you and Carly? Like, what kind of stage of your life were you at, where you were kind of, what was the plan for the next step?
Yeah, so obviously when we first got out, it was like she got out on the Monday, I think, and I got out on the Wednesday. It was like, I think that was it. And we had planned, like I was terrified now. I mean, Joanne will know this, because when she left, I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to get to see her again. She's just going to not talk to me. She's going to block me. And them 2 days in rehab waiting, because they had no phone, you couldn't contact anyone. Like, so I had no contact with her, and I had been with her for 28 days in a row, like all day, every day. And I was in love since day one. So I was like, I started worrying, because she obviously told me about all her life in her past and everything that went on, and I was just like, imagine she just doesn't want to talk to me now. And there was a poor roommate that I had in there, like listening to me for the 2 days was awful. Like I was crying, and she left me a note, and I have the little note in my wallet that I carry everywhere with me, just basically telling me how much she loved me, and like she couldn't wait for it to start her life together on the outside. So then I got the phone call. I rang her when I got out on the Wednesday, and I went up on the Friday then, and it was kind of like we were inseparable. You know, like if we weren't at home, if I wasn't with her and she wasn't down with me, we'd be texting like all the time. But it wasn't an annoying message like, oh, I have to get back to you. Like it was Joe, like that. Look, like what's the start phase of a relationship where you just all you can think about is them. Like, so it was just texting. We were meeting up all the time, and
love each other.
Then it just started to get, like, you could see it as time went on, it started to get a little bit harder for her. You could see the kind of honeymoon phase was wearing off. Not the love for me, but the struggles of real life started to come back in for her. Like, and she started to get really down a lot more often than that. So I was trying to come up as much as I could. I was trying to come up more, and like Joanne would even tell you this, like she used to be dread when I'd go home from when I was up there. Like when I'd call up to her house, I could be there for 4 or 5 days in a row, and like she's so worried and anxious and sad about when I was leaving, because she didn't want me to leave. And then like that's when I started being worrying about her, and I was like, okay, maybe she is struggling. And the relationship, like, it didn't affect our relationship, because like she was just dreading that, because her mental health was getting bad again, and like she was struggling. She thought I was going to leave her, and she was terrified that I was going to leave. And I was like, Carly, I can promise you now, under no circumstance, I'm never going anywhere. I don't care what I have to do. I said, I just want to be beside you. I want to try to help you. And I was trying to do everything I could for her, but I understand I could only do so much. And I had to go home. And every time I went home, then I was worried sick. But it was, you could just tell she was struggling for a while. And like, then she started to be like, trying to push me away, hoping that to get the easy way out. You know what I mean? She was like, "You don't need this in your life. You don't need to be around me. Like I have two kids," and you could always tell she was like, she obviously she didn't want me to leave, but she felt so bad because she was down that she didn't want to put it on me. But I was like, her, I just ring her and be like, "Shut up! Shut up! I'm not going anywhere. I'm never going anywhere. You're going to have to deal with me, whether you're sad or you're happy. Either one, I'm going to be by your side." Like that's all I used to tell her the whole time. So I was never going to leave her, but our plan was, I think was it July last year? I think we were planning. Was it Joanne? July.
Yeah, July, because yeah, she had planned to go up, because what happened that week, Haley, was that I'd actually lost my aunt in England, who was like a mother
Okay.
to me. And we had booked to go to the funeral. So it would have been in and around, yeah, it was the week Carly died, actually. We were due to go to England on the 10th of June. So Carly was due to go down to Owen for that week with the kids while we were away from here, because I had said, like, I didn't want her on her own here, because that week she had been struggling. She had been kind of struggling, as Owen said, she was kind of struggling a little bit when he wasn't around. So what we had said was, you go down for the week while we're away, and then when we come back. So the plan was then that she was going to go down for the week and then actually move down there in July. So they, like I said, the kids were enrolled in school. They had done that a couple of weeks before on, wasn't it? Because she had
Yeah.
been down with you, yeah.
Yeah.
So
For a
yeah,
week.
they had gone up to the school and enrolled the kids in that. So yeah, so it was July kind of.
What was Kylie struggling with? Was it just being away from home?
Her
Was it
head,
kind
it
of
was
mental health?
Yeah, it was the mental health side of things, and she just because
Mental health.
she used to always tell me that she was like, whenever she feel down, she'd use it, like take tablets or take a drug to block it out. So she said like there was so much healing to do from her brother passing, so much healing with her dad. Like not she never basically she never dealt with anything. That's all she used to say to me, that she like at the best of times she struggles with feeling good enough, and she said she always felt like she wasn't a good person. That's for me. That's from past relationship being projected back onto her, like making her feel she's not good enough. She always thought that she never thought she was good enough. And like I used to always tell her, if only you could see yourself through my eyes. I said, if you could see yourself through my eyes, I said, you'd know how beautiful and all that you are. But I done my best to reassure her and do everything, but like she had deeper issues that had been going on that only she wasn't speaking too much about, and she'd only talk about the iceberg of it, and she'd be like, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm just going to go for a nap," and then she'd try to sleep it off, but she was trying to deal with it, but she couldn't really deal with it herself. Like so, that's what happened. Like it was just I don't like I can't even tell you if it was drugs or drink, because she never said that to me. So it was all for me. What from what I know was like depression and like just her mental health.
Yeah, I
I
think
think people don't understand that when you take away the addiction. Sorry, Joanne. When you
Sorry.
take away the addiction, the underneath issues that you were trying to self-medicate are still there,
Yeah.
and then they rush all in at once.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so much to deal
Like,
with, and you're trying to avoid as well.
she was sober. Like even when she left, even when she left rehab, they said your hair got sober, Carly. You know what I'm saying? Like it was like
Yeah.
she went in and came out. Like even within the week, Haley, the difference in her face. It's so amazing to see somebody going in and like Owen would be testament to this. Like when he went in, like take a picture of the before, and within a week they look completely different. I remember the first day I saw her after the week, and she had two plaits in her hair, and she looked so like her face was glowing. It was so different to the day that she went in. And when she came out, like being sober, then you've got to think, then you're now sober. You now have no substance. You now have to deal with life.
Yeah.
And that would have been very difficult for her, around the fact of like mostly around the death of her brother, and the trauma of like of her father, and that, because you got to remember she was 9 years old. She went over to the house and she finds her father dead. You know what I mean? So it's like there was a lot of trauma there for her. So yeah, and then on the other side of it, you also had the other thing going on where that hadn't stopped. As a matter of fact, when Carly died, the guy that actually ran the place, the rehab center, came to her funeral and actually told me that the ex had actually rang several times when she was in rehab to actually try and get in while she was there. So 2 days after she came home, the abuse didn't stop, like,
No, of course it doesn't.
didn't stop. But now she had to deal with it a different way,
Yeah.
you know. Now and look, from my point of view, like, I was there from start to finish. So I saw what went on, and I saw the struggles that Carly had with that. And like, there was, you know, every time she tried to get something done about it, you know yourself, you hear it all the time, Hailey. It's, you know, it's there. Women come up against this blockade. Like, it's like there's no help for them.
It's not until you get killed. Like, I left domestic abuse 2 years ago after 14 years, had 3 children. Absolutely horrible. And I phoned so many times. It was only the last time when it was near death that he was put in prison. And I literally was told, until he hurts you, we can't do anything. It's just words. And you're up against the system. I'm covering cases every single day, especially in Ireland at the moment. Women are dying at the rate of nothing. And every single one of them have had prior contact with the police.
Yeah. And this was the thing with Carly. Like, I mean, he had been in 3 times for breaching a protection order. And every time he went in, he was told, I don't want to see you in front of me again. I don't want to see you in front of me again. But nothing was getting done. So, like, there was one point where I actually had come across him, and I had pulled up in the car beside him because, like, you get to that point where it's like, you're powerless. You're actually powerless, because if you put your hands on him, like, I don't know how many times my husband got so mad, and at one particular time he went down and actually kicked in the door of the house, and like, and then you're in trouble, you know. And it's like, so I mean, I met him and I pulled him and I told him, I said, if you don't leave my daughter alone, I said, I will fucking bury you. But he actually went to the station, the Garda station, and made a statement against Carly, saying that she said it. And the guards came down, and actually she rang me and she said, Ma, they're going to arrest me. For what? I said. Because he's after making a statement. And I said, well, if those guards arrest you, I said, I swear to God, I said, I'm going on the local radio station tomorrow. So I had to go down in case, like, she had to be arrested to look after the 2 kids. But it actually turned out she had to go to the station and was let out in her own bail.
That's absolutely mad.
Like, how disturbing is that for women? And especially, you know, especially as a young girl, you know, 24 years of age. I mean, also, like, dealing with that and dealing with, like, coming out of addiction, and, you know, and even though she was happy with Owen, like, you have to deal with life, you know.
You've got one leg still in that past, haven't you? You've got one foot in the past, still scared that that's going to come over again. And he was so much older than her. The power struggle there of being able to gaslight her, use her children. He made it very clear when he said in the beginning that he'd phoned social services about the STD and the baby. He made it very clear that this is how far I can go.
He threatened me with the social workers, and I was the one that was here that had his 2 children when she was in rehab. Like, he would go to meetings. Like, my husband would take him to meetings because he'd be telling my husband, I'm clean now, I'm getting clean, and my husband would actually bring him to meetings. But I remember, like, when the 2 kids were here, he'd come up, like, the meeting would say it started at 7:30. Now, bear in mind, Carly was in rehab at this time, so he'd come up at, like, the meeting would be 8:30, so my husband be leaving here at 7:30. He'd come up at 7:15 and spend 15 minutes with his children. Like, nobody ever stopped him. And the one thing I would say about Carly, and this is the one thing with her, because Carly lost her dad, the one thing she wanted was her 2 children to have their dad. But you're forcing something that is never going to happen. And I used to say to her all the time, he's not a father. He never wants to be a father. He wants you. And the only thing he's going to do with those children is control you. And that's exactly the way it worked. I mean, he came in here, handed me €50 and said, there's €50 for you. For me, I said, that's for your 2 children.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but 15 minutes he'd spend with his kids. And here was us thinking, he's getting his life on track, blah, blah, blah. But it actually wasn't happening. Behind the scenes, he was still doing the same thing. You know what I mean? But it was all an act to actually portray that because she was in rehab, he was doing the same thing. He was getting his life on track because she was getting her life on track. And that's what they do. A mirror.
They do know that. Yeah,
Yeah.
they do. They try to.
You know?
Can you tell us what happened in kind of the day when you kind of couldn't get hold of Carly?
So it was a Thursday, 13th. And the evening before, the day before, she had actually got her hair done. And I had said to her, because she was very blonde sometimes, I'd said, will you go a bit darker? I said, because I actually like the dark hair. So she did, and she had the nails done. So I was down that evening talking to her at around 9:15 that evening, and the granddaughter was staying with me that night.
Okay.
So Carly was outside the front with her little boy, and they were just playing around the garden and that. So I said to her, I'm not going to be here now. I said, tomorrow. So I said, make sure you pick her up, I said, from school, because she'd finished at 12:30, and I was actually going to Ennis, which was 45 minutes away. And she said, I will, Ma, I will. So she said to me, do you think Owen will like my hair? And I said, I think he'll love it. I said, it's really nice. Like, and she was so, like, now she'd had a bad week that week. She had a meeting on the Tuesday, and I had brought her over to it. It was her aftercare meeting, and she had come out and she was crying, and she said she struggled, and she said, Ma, I'm struggling this week because Owen had been up for 10 days and he'd actually only gone back, and she was struggling because she was on her own then. So she said to me, she said, look, Ma, she said, but she had reached out, Hailey. She had rang the rehab centre. They had organised for her the following Monday to have one-to-one counselling. So she had reached out. Yeah.
I'm trying really hard.
She knew. Yeah. She knew she was struggling. She'd actually contacted the day centre as well, because a couple of weeks before she'd asked them to down her medication a bit. And then she had contacted them that week to say, look, could you put it back up again for me, because I am struggling a bit. So she knew she was struggling, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I said, so that evening anyway, she gave her daughter a kiss, and she said, I'll see you tomorrow, baby. And I said, I'll talk to you tomorrow. I said, don't forget, pick up the child at 12:30. And she goes, I know, Ma. So that was fine. Left at that. The following day, I had gone to Ennis, and for all the world, I was actually in the church lighting candles for her when I got the phone call from the school to say that her daughter hadn't been picked up.
Right, okay.
So I spoke to the teacher and I said, look, I'm not in town. I said, so will you do me a favour? I said, so the next one on the list then is my dad for the school.
Okay. So
they rang him, and he was actually out and about. So he ended up picking her up and bringing her to his house. So I was ringing Carly, ringing her. I was getting no answer. I was texting her, will you answer the phone? Your child is above at Granddad's. I was like, will you come on and answer the phone? This was going on and on. And eventually then, of course, I had to drive home. So I drove home. It must have been about, I'd say, between 5:15 in the evening. I picked up the granddaughter from my dad's house, and I actually took a trip down to Carly's house and beeped outside the door, which is something I normally would do. Like, if I was calling to Carly, I would beep. Leja would come running down the stairs, the little fella, he would come running down the stairs, and like he would open the door and he'd run out to me. But on this day, the door didn't open. So my initial reaction was that maybe she has relapsed. Now, there's nothing else that I would have done differently that day apart from beep Hailey and then leave it at that. So I left it and I went home. I tried again a few times. In the meantime, Owen had rang me on a couple of occasions and said, like, he's not getting through to Carly, you know. Several members.
And I knew, like I said to Joanne, I said, even when she doesn't ring Joanne, I said, in the morning she'll text me, and she used to always say, like, if he was having a bad day, she'd be like, I'm feeling terrible today, but I just want you to know that I love you so much, and I'm not, like, I'm going to try to spend time with the kid, and I'm going to relax in bed, and I don't want to be checking my phone. I just want to chill out, that's when she was having a very, very bad day. That only happened once or twice, but if she didn't contact anyone else, it would have been me. She always texts me because she knew I'd worry about her. If she didn't text me, I'd be worried sick. Like, anytime she used to not text me by like 12 or 1, I'd be ringing Joanne. I'd be like, Joanne, where is she? Is she all right? Just go down and make sure I know she's breathing and she's alive, because I knew she was struggling. So I was always just, it wasn't a controlling thing or anything like that. I was just like, go down, check if she's all right. I don't want you to tell her I was asking, just check on her and see if she is okay. That's all I want to know. And yeah, that's.
So the silence that day for you, Owen, was completely new, completely different.
Yeah, nothing. I didn't hear anything. I was on the phone to her at 4 o'clock that morning, the morning beforehand. Okay. And she was talking to me and she was crying, and like, she was just telling me how badly she was struggling, and she couldn't see a way out, and she didn't want to be here anymore. And I was just like doing everything I could. Like I just stood up all night talking to her, begging her, saying that how much I loved her and how much her kids love her, and that I'll get her through this time, and we'll get through it together. Like, and eventually I talked her out of it, and she was back smiling at the end of the call, and she was like, I just love you so much, and she just said, thank you, like, thanks for everything you're doing for me. And like, I was that, like, that's the way it went. Like, but after 4 o'clock that morning, like when she hung up the phone and went to bed, she just sent me a message, and that was the last I heard of her.
Okay. So that seems to be one thing about Carly that I'm learning already is Carly was really emotionally intelligent. She knew when she needed help. She knew when she needed a bit extra help from her mum. She knew when she needed that she was struggling, and she was really vocal about like what she was struggling with and when she was. So to just fall off the radar doesn't seem like her at all, especially with the children.
No.
Right. Okay.
No.
She had her son with her that day, so like, my thing was if she had relapsed, then she either had left the house and gone to a friend's house, or like she just didn't want to answer the door. Do you know what I mean? So there's nothing different that I would personally have done that day apart from just beat and left because I had the granddaughter. But as I said, Owen had rang me then on a few occasions. And my thing was, it was like, if she has relapsed, I said to Owen, I said, look, he said to me, I want to come up. I said, Owen, don't come up, I said, tonight. I said, because if she has relapsed, I said, things could get heated. And then, you know yourself, like when people are in addiction, they say things they don't mean. And it was kind of like, I was trying to protect that kind of side of him and her. Do you know what I mean?
And also Owen is just
and for Owen as well, like, you know, he was only after coming out himself. So that was fine that night. So the granddaughter was with me. So I went to bed around 9:30. And there's a friend of mine, it's a very, very good friend of mine. Like we're you know, since we were children, he's in our life since he's in my life since I was a child. And he's like an uncle to my kids. But whatever it was, I don't even know why, because normally I wouldn't, but I rang him and I just said to him, I said, have you seen anything of Carly? I said today, and he wouldn't know, like he wouldn't see Carly on a daily basis because he works a lot and he'd be away. But he wouldn't see her on a daily basis, but he'd always pop to see if she was okay now and again. And he said, no, he said, Joanne, I haven't seen her. And he said, but I'm passing by the house and the light is on. He said, do you want me to knock? And I said, will you? I said, don't say anything now. I said that I sent you or anything, you know, because I said, I'm just, you know, just in case she has relapsed. So he said, I won't. So he rang me back. So this was around 10:20. So he rang me back and he said, this is exactly what he said to me. He said, Joanne, she's asleep. And I said, okay. And he said, but guess who's there? And I said, who? And he said, your man. And I said, the fuck, I said, is he doing? Now, my friend had knocked at the door and got no answer, and he shouted in the letterbox. And then he said he said he'd do it a second time because the light was on. So he did. So there's two little windows where my daughter lived. There's two little windows and the stairs. You can actually see who goes up and down the stairs. So my friend is literally just walking away and he turns because he hears him coming down the stairs. And he comes to the door and his son is in his arms and he tells my friend she's asleep. So my friend rings me and tells me she's asleep. And I said, I'll deal with her tomorrow, I said, because obviously he wasn't supposed to be anywhere around the house.
This is the children's father and Carly's ex-abuser, her real abuser still, who's in the house. And that's obviously floored you because they're over, she's with Owen. She's not likely to ever be around him again. Yeah.
Like the only she would have dropped, like he would have been taking the kids, like even when Owen was up, like he would have been taking the kids. But of course that was, you know, yourself, the show then, because Owen was on the scene, you know, so so I was kind of left like it was kind of left like that anyway. So the next thing anyway, I seen my phone. I normally would turn my phone on silent, Hailey, you know, in the nighttime. So like I saw the phone flashing, and first I thought it was maybe her. Then I thought maybe probably Owen, but I picked it up anyway, and it wasn't either of them. It was actually his mother, and I answered the phone. And when I answered the phone, she was shouting down the phone at me, he can't wake Carly up, her lips are blue. So I jumped from the bed, just threw on a dressing gown, ran down the stairs. I said to my husband, I said, something's wrong, Carly. So I just got into my car, and her house literally 2 minutes down the road. So I got into my car, and on the way I rang the friend that actually had knocked at the door and told him what was happening. So I went down, and the house door was open, and I ran up the stairs, and my daughter was in the bed in an upright position. His mother was there screaming at me to call an ambulance. But when I looked at Carly, like, I knew there and then, I saw her colour, and I knew that Carly was gone. So I just ran from the house, screaming, and
So sorry.
came outside. And I remember when I came outside, and I was just screaming. There wasn't anything else I could do. Like, I was just screaming. But then I remember my friend then standing beside me, and he went into the house, and then, like, I just remember the guards being there, and my friend, he knows CPR and that, so him and one of the guards that was there, which was only a young guard, she'd only actually literally come out of Templemore. They had done CPR on her for about probably 20 minutes, maybe 15, 20 minutes before the next thing was the fire brigade arrived. Now, all the while, he was standing over on the right hand side of me with the child in his arms, just standing there. So ambulance, fire brigade, they all came on the scene, and it was just chaotic. I mean, there was people lined up on the street in cars, and eventually, about 45 minutes later, they brought Carly out on the stretcher with the tubes and that, and I couldn't, they wouldn't allow me to give her a kiss because of the equipment they had on her and that. And then what happened was one of the tubes actually came out, so they had to rush her into the ambulance. So that was around 12:15 going into the 14th, and that was on the Friday. So we rushed down home and changed clothes and sorted out my daughter and my granddaughter. My dad came down with his wife to look after the kids while we went to the hospital. So on the way, we rang Owen and his mum, and they were going meeting us down in Limerick. So we came in, and they were still working on her in the hospital. So we came in, and we were there for about probably 20 minutes, half an hour waiting, and then we were brought around to the back. And the doctor came out to speak to me, and he said, "What do you think?" He said, "It is." And I said, "More than likely," I said, "alcohol and cocaine," I said, "is all I can come up with." And he said, "Have you ever heard of nitazene?" And I said, "Nitazene?" I said, I don't know anything about nitazene. There was 5 in 4 hours in just the Clare area brought in. Carly was the 5th. Two had died. One was released. One was in intensive care the same night as Carly, and Carly was literally across the room from that person. So they explained what nitazene was, and being a synthetic form of whatever drug. So there's 4 different types of it. So, like, you can find.
I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, I'd never even known about it either, Hailey. But it's not.
Like fentanyl.
Well, it would be like there would actually be I'd say there would actually be a form of fentanyl that wouldn't be real. It's a synthetic form, and because of the war that's going on. Yeah, it was actually man-made. So, like,
synthetic fentanyl, right? Okay.
Yeah, it can be put into anything, like, so. So that was fine. They transferred her to ICU, and and then we were waiting outside, and then we were brought in. We were led in to see her, and every machine that was in there, every single machine that was on Carly, was doing what her body should have been doing. So the specialist explained to us that because Carly was warm, she had been, like, clinically, we'll say, dead, but because she was warm, rigor mortis hadn't set in at that stage because it was 2.5 to 3 hours. So he actually said to us that they were going to do everything possible, because they didn't know the extent of the damage either, that was done to her. So he said, "We're going to do everything we can." He said, "We normally give them 72 hours, he said, to see if they actually come around." So they actually did dialysis and everything. you know.
Okay.
But then shortly afterwards, they came back to us and he had done a scan, and Carly had 3 bleeds, 2 to the back of her eyes and 1 to her brain, and he told us that her brain was so swollen from the lack of oxygen that it was actually pushing through her skull. And he said, I don't know, he said, if you understand the concept of that. And I said, I actually do. I said, because nobody can live beyond 4 minutes
No, not that
without
oxygen.
oxygen. Anything after that, you're talking like severe damage. You're not coming back out of it after 2.5 to 3 hours. So yeah, it's just a case then of sitting with her, and they kind of told us that anyone wants to come and say goodbye to her, that would be the time to do it. So yeah, we just sat with her, and I remember sitting there. But I actually remember her kind of saying to me, "Take the picture, ma'am, take the picture." So I actually took a picture of her because I thought I don't want anyone ever to go through that.
Yeah.
And a few days later, I actually came out with the story about Nitazine and what had happened to her. And you know, if it was to save somebody else's child, somebody else's mother, do you know what I mean? But but the one thing about it is when we were there with her, and Owen will testify to this one, the bond that we had, like I had said 3 times I was going for a fag, and 3 times when I got up to go down for the fag, Carly, I would get a phone call from the nurses to say our blood pressure had dropped and our heart rate had dropped, and I'd come back up and hold her hand again. And then the 4th time I actually said, I'm going to the toilet, Carly, is that okay? And I actually got to the toilet and I got to have a fag. So I know that she was still,
Yes, you could hear.
you know, yeah, and then we just sat there, and eventually she kind of did it herself. She decided to go.
How old was she when she passed away?
She was 2 weeks away from her 26th birthday. She was 25.
Just a baby, man.
Yeah. So
We had actually booked. We were I had a bit hotel, and a 2 and 3 night stay away booked for us. It was our first proper night going to be away, because every night we were together with the kids. Like it was always and then when we were in rehab, we had all the people in the house, so we didn't actually get too much time on our own together, just the 2 of us. Like whenever I was up there and I slept with her. The kids, the 4 of us, would be in the bed. Like the kids would be there as well, and so I was like, for her birthday, I'm taking her away for the 2 weeks. Or for I think it was 3 nights I had it booked in for. And I was like, I just would have loved to have even got them 3 nights out of it, like just to have a bit of alone time with her. But it didn't happen.
So precious. Did her children get to say goodbye to her?
no, they didn't tell it.
Just too much.
We played their voices for her on her. Yeah, and we played her music, and it was kind of shortly after that she kind of took it on herself to leave. So no, they didn't. And then you're left then with the decision of like, now, like you've a 2.5-year-old and a 4-year-old. You're left with the decision then, do you allow them to go to the funeral? Do you let them see it? This decision at the time was, no, I didn't. And I didn't because I, like, and I it's hard for adults to make sense of something, and I can't even imagine being inside, in especially the eldest girl, because she was older. She had seen her mother the night before, and then a week later she comes to live here, and there is no more Memmy, you know. Like for the small fella, now and again he still kind of says like that she's in the house she's in, because we'd pass out the house. But yeah, it's a trauma for them, and like they're babies now. They talk about her. I try to make it as normal as I can for them with her. We go back to see her, we visit her. You know, we go to talk to her, we bring her flowers, Mother's Day, her birthday, and I try to make it as normal as I can for them, because I suppose I don't want them thinking, you know, that look, she's gone forever, but at the same time, I talk to her in front of them because I want them. Do you know what I mean? It's
she's still part of everyday living, and she's still their mum, isn't she? And it's still so hard.
in
Explain at
the
that
next
age.
few years, questions, they're going to ask questions. And like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie to these children. It's not fair to lie to them, and I'm not going to lie to them. You know, the truth has to be told. And this is what happened. You know, a couple of days later, I go into the house and, well, actually, sorry, the following morning after Carly passed was on the Saturday. And I had rang the guards that morning. It was around, because I'd woken up, and there's actually a friend of mine that lives back the west. He's an older man, and I actually do a few bits for him, like I get shopping, or my husband would get shopping for him. But
Yeah.
that was my first port to call, because I thought, before all the madness starts, I just need to get my head somewhere, you know. So I actually ended up getting up early that morning and going back to his place. And on the way back, I rang the guards and I said, "Where is my daughter's phone?" Like,
Yeah.
there was no phone in the house. Like, where's her phone? She was never without her phone. So the guard said, "We'll get her phone, Joanne." And I said, "Okay." So a few hours later, I had a phone call, and it was from his mother, her ex's mother, saying that the house that he was living in was raided. Like, her nose was put out of joint. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then she proceeded to say that I have Carly's phone here. And
I don't understand why you'd have Carly's phone in that situation at all. Why do you even have picked it up? Like, Carly was on the bed by the time she got there dying, had been there for quite some time, and you think about taking evidence.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
So I said to her, "So, like, what are you doing with Carly's phone?" But every time I said it, the subject changed. So initially on the night, when they were being asked, like, what was going on, and this was coming from my dad as well, they were saying that Carly had rang him at 5:30 that evening,
Okay.
looking for money for the kids, which he never gave money. So she wouldn't have looked for money. If Carly was ringing looking for him, it would be to take the children, not
to give her a break, or just to help.
According to their story, he was up there at 7:30. But then you see the following day, when we knew how long she was without oxygen, when I actually mentioned it, I said, like, "Can you answer me one question? How in God's name," I said, "is my daughter without oxygen for 2.5 to 3 hours if your son is in the house?"
Yeah.
So the answer I got to that one was, he fell asleep. So he fell asleep as well.
You missed the whole thing.
Yeah. So when I questioned that, and I said, "Well, if he fell asleep, like, when I went into the house and I saw the amount of vomit that was in the house 2 days later, like downstairs,
It was black, wasn't it? Everywhere.
it was everywhere. It was, you couldn't miss it. The smell of it, you couldn't miss it. Like, you could, the amount of crap that was thrown around in her bedroom alone, empty packets, tablets, Coke, everything was just thrown on the floor, thrown on the locker. Like, it was like a staged
scene. Do you think Carly took the nitazine herself?
No.
Or do you think he somehow offered her something like Coke, or do you think he's just come round and he's just given her stuff?
Hailey, I
reckon he gave it to her without her. She didn't know nitazine was in it, and I reckon it was in the tablets that she took. The tablets were laced with nitazine.
The following day, you see, things started coming out the following day, and it was only after, when you start getting your mind together, and it's only like a few days later. Like, looking at that house that night, how in God's name do you walk downstairs, past all that, stand at the door, and tell somebody she's asleep, and then 3 minutes later, all hell breaks loose?
Yeah, because from my point of view and my history, so say your drug of choice was Coke, and there's still Coke there on the side, you ain't looking to take some new tablet, you don't even know what the fuck they are, you ain't looking for something different, your drug of choice is there, you don't need to, like, if it run out, you might say, yeah, get me something else, always, but you ain't taking nothing new when your drug is there.
Have your drug there. I know too well, I've been in addiction for years myself. If my drug was there, I wouldn't look at another drug. I don't want it.
Especially a new one I'd never heard of, had no idea what it was. I'm not taking nothing. It's only when it runs out and you've been at a party for 3 or 4 days and someone goes, "I've got this," and I'm like, "Well, I'll take one." It doesn't make sense. And the amount of
like the phone thing, then it was only my youngest daughter that actually said to me a few days later, but Ma, she said, what if Carly never had her phone? What if like she didn't have her phone? Because Hailey, I'm telling you, and I know it, my daughter, if she thought for 1 minute, even if she did like do it herself, I know in my own heart and soul that if Carly thought for 1 minute she was in trouble, she would have been on that phone to me straight away.
100%. You can see she asked for help every time she needed it, and that's why I asked you all the way through. Was she someone who was always going to ask for help, no matter even if she was in trouble? Was she going to admit to things? It's quite clear. And to me, this is the most dangerous time in any young girl's life, when she tries to leave an abuser for good. Because breakup violence is what's killing most women in Ireland, USA, and UK right now. As soon as you make it clear that I've met Owen, I'm in love with Owen, the kids really like him, I'm about to move, it's the time when he'll be like, if I can't have you, no one else can. And that is when these young ladies are dying, because she's finally made it clear that she has a new life. She's got someone she loves who adores her. And this would be the time she was most at risk.
Yeah. Like even with the amount of vomit in the house, and then for her to be upstairs in the bed. Let me tell you something, yeah? His son, like my friend said it, if he thought for 1 minute that he thought there was something wrong in that house, he would never have walked away. There was no indication whatsoever that there was anything wrong in that house. His son was spotless clean nappy, face was spotless, vest was spotless. Yeah. That doesn't happen to a 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old, like if you're in a mess of a house like that. Second of all, she had no vomit. There was no vomit on her face, there was no vomit on her clothes, there was no vomit on her hair. The next, like, you know, and then like as your mind starts going, you know, as you start thinking, then you start thinking, like the other biggest part for me is why was her phone taken from the house? Yeah, and then like for his mother to turn around and then say to me, oh well, the second story was he was there all day with her taking tablets, and I said, well then why wasn't I rang? He was good enough to text me in February when she was in addiction and tell me everything about it, and tell me everything she was taking and everything she was doing. So why didn't he ring me that day? That changed again, and then it was like then look, do you know what? The two of them are as bad as each other. And I said, you know what, now I don't even want to get into an argument about this. I said, because my daughter is dead. You know, like, you know, so moving on from that, for the full year, like I have been 6 weeks after I rang the guards and I asked them, what's the story with my daughter's investigation? And it was like, what investigation? And then like they were saying, I was like, what do you mean, what investigation? I said, you do know someone knocked at the door, like? And they were like, no. So it was like I had to go from there. So I've had to push it and push it and push it and push it and keep after them and keep saying it. Like, along with dealing with being brought in and out of court for access, and then along dealing with my daughter's death. You know, I mean, so eventually, like as I said the other day, we're now at the stage where I have been told that the investigation is going on.
Okay.
And hopefully at the end of it, like a year down the road, something will be done. Because like Hailey, I was there sitting on this for a solid year, and it was like, why should I have to tell everyone that, oh, my daughter died from an overdose? It's not about her dying from an overdose. If she did, I'd be the first to come out and say it. I came out about the nitazine. I had no problem saying it. And I wished at that time I could have said it. And if it was the fact that Carly did take an overdose, she came out of rehab, the one thing I'd be saying at the time is, please be careful. Yes. If you're coming out of rehab, please be careful. I didn't have any shame in it. I didn't have any stigma around it. I had no problem. But here I was sitting on something that I knew was not right. You know, it wasn't right, like.
What I don't understand is he admitted to police, didn't he, that he had been selling nitazine from that house early that day. He admitted it was his drugs. And
no, he hadn't. This is the thing, you see, he hasn't admitted to that yet. What happened was the following day, I got 2 messages sent to me from 2 different girls.
Okay.
Yeah. Showing that he had been trying to sell to them 12 hours before.
So he'd also, there's even a thing of like, if you're in the house and Carly is puking up black stuff for a period of hours because it's in every room, up the stairs and the downstairs toilet, in the kitchen, you're watching her die at that point and you're doing nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So unless your intention was for her to die, at any point with your child in the house, because I know if I've been at a party before and someone started being sick or having a fit, I'm like, I don't care if I'm getting in trouble, I'm phoning the police, someone's dying here. You, with your son, dressed him, changed him, walked past her body, and at some point just placed her upright in her bed without helping her, without trying to phone her mum. Even when that man knocked on the door, you didn't say, like, help us, like, there's something going on. You just let her die.
Yeah, so you walk past all the vomit in her bedroom, you walk past all the contraband, you walk past the coke, you walk past the packets of tablets, you walk past the empty packets, you walk down the stairs where all the vomit was on the walls, where it was on the banister, where it was downstairs on the door, where it was in the sink. You walked all past that and stood at the door and said, she's asleep.
To me, it looks like this is a purposeful thing of Carly's finally found the strength to go for rehab. She's finally found love. She wants to move away. She's broke all ties with him. And then all of a sudden, she's found with this bizarre drug in her system that she's never taken before, has no access to, has no reason to take. Yeah. And we all know if Carly wasn't completely unconscious straight away or in a really bad way, she would have reached out to either of you two to say, Mum, I've got the baby here. I've just taken something and I need an ambulance. She would have told someone, which makes you wonder what state she was in. She obviously didn't have her phone, didn't have access for any help. And he's preyed upon the fact that she was known as an addict, someone who'd been in rehab, to make it look like she's like herself.
Yeah.
So tragic.
I don't even, like, I haven't even started dealing with Carly's death yet, not alone. I can't even sit with that, because even to think of what went on in that house that day, that whole day, because like a couple of months later, it was the young fella, the small fella, that actually told me then how, like, his mother died, because he told me the monster was coming out of his memmy. And I said, I know, baby. And then, you know, he was explaining poo-poo in her bum. And I said, who put her to bed? And he said, Daddy. And I said, who knocked at the door? And he could tell me the name. And what did Daddy say? Shut up. Now that's coming from a 2.5-year-old.
That's our 2.5-year-old that said the monster was coming out of mummy, meaning the black stuff. And that she was going poop and her dad had to put her to bed. So at that point, he must have been explaining to his child, like, don't worry, it's just a monster coming out of mummy, like, it's just a monster. Because that's how we kind of make things better for kids, right? We kind of like just explain it away. And the 2-year-old has explained that, like, he's watched his mother die pretty much in that house. Yeah. And even at that point, this bastard did not reach out for any kind of help or try to get his son to safety so he didn't have to see that. It's absolutely crazy to me that this has not been a criminal investigation.
It was actually my husband who actually called the ambulance that night. When I left the house, it was actually my husband that called the ambulance, because there was no ambulance called by anybody. Like, I was being screamed at to call an ambulance, you know. So, I mean, look, I sat in it for a year, Hailey. I was the one that had to hold my decorum. I was the one that had to sit back. I was the one that had to be the strong person. I was the one that had to do this. I was the one that had to do that. Like, I'm not doing it anymore. Like, my daughter deserved better than that. She deserves justice. You know, she deserves to be here today with her 2 children. Yeah. And that's something that we have to live with for the rest of our lives, and those 2 children have to grow up without, is their mum. You know, never hearing her.
Thanks, Corey. We deserve to have her children a full story one day, that their mum didn't choose not to be here with them, and that she had tried to get better. She had gone through rehab. She'd done everything. It makes me so sad, because I've been in a similar situation before and I've come out the other side. But I always wondered, like, if something happened to me, like with tablets or something, would people think, like, because of my history, like I'd done it myself? And it's always a fear, isn't it? Like, and that's what they're trying to do to Carly. Like, well, obviously she did, but she was in the best place really she'd ever been. She was dealing with her emotions. She was still in pain, yeah, but she was clean. She was sober. She was trying. She was about to start a whole new life with that breaks my heart. Like, the love that Owen has for her and for the kids, and like where her life would be at now, this time this year, like it breaks me that she never got to be a part of that. Like, honestly, she deserved it so much. I'm devastated for you. I'm so sorry for your loss. Like, and the fact that you've been silenced for a year.
Yeah, well, this is it. Like, you know, it's like, you know, this is it now. It's out, and you know, it's like I'd been carrying this weight for so long, and you know, as I said on my video, I can't move forward in my life carrying that, knowing that wasn't the truth of what happened to my daughter, so the truth needs to be told. And look, I'm only saying what happened that night. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything different. I'm only giving what happened that night. And those are the exact things that happened step by step. So until we get the coroner's report, which will be interesting,
Yeah.
and then the inquest, of course, as well, which I will be asking a lot of questions at. But we can't do any of that, of course, because there's an investigation. It all has to go to the justice system first before any of that is done. But hopefully down the road, it will come to the point where something will be done, because
We ain't going to rest until we get some justice for Carly and you.
no, I'm not. I can't. I made a promise to her, and even when she was alive, she used to say to me, make sure my kids are looked after, and I always said I would.
People asking where the father of the children is now. He is currently out trying to get visitation of the kids, isn't he? And you're fighting him through the court because it's an active investigation. You still don't know what role he played in Carly's death. You know he certainly allowed her to die on his watch and fed her the drugs that killed her. At the very least, to me, it looks like it's much more geared towards something criminal happening, because I get who Carly was, and I just get that this, if Carly was going to choose to take something that was going to do this to her life, she certainly wouldn't have done it with her baby in the house. And we all know that as mothers, that Carly would have left him with you that day. She would have left him with her grandfather. Carly was not going in to take a multitude of different drugs that she didn't even know the effects of in front of her 2.5-year-old. She wasn't doing that. And the thing that convinced me the most, knowing the history I have and what I've kind of experienced, obviously I do criminology as well, is that if Carly was on some kind of mission, she would have finished her drug of choice before she started anything else. It was not going to be left there while she tried to pick a mix of stuff she didn't even understand what it was. I am 100% convinced that somebody gave Carly exactly what killed her, took away her phone, and then kept her in that house in isolation until it was too late. Because at any point he cared about Carly, or they were just getting wrecked together, he also would have been in a state because of the potence of that drug. But also, as soon as she started puking or feigning out of consciousness, he would have called someone. Even if he had phoned them anonymous and left the house, he would have called someone. He wanted her to die.
Exactly what we said. Even if it was a thing where you gave him and then the effects happened, like when the vomiting started, if you had panicked then and said, "Oh Jesus Christ, now what am I going to do?" Rang somebody and just left the house, fine. But you didn't. And the thing about it is, you put yourself in the house. You put yourself in the house at the time, and you look. You can try and justify the time frame as much as you want here. I don't care if you went in at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 10 past 10. I don't care. You did not ring an ambulance and you told somebody else she was asleep. So it doesn't matter what time you went into the house.
It doesn't, because the people that have nothing to hide don't hide anything. They don't lie. Oh. And if Carly was supposed to be peacefully asleep 20 minutes before, how did she wake up, run around the house, be sick in every room, poo herself, get her son changed, get herself changed, lay the drugs out, make a mess, and then get into bed? And you went, "Oh, she's not asleep. This is actually looks like a crime scene." You knew, and you were going to wait until she was fully dead. But then a family friend knocked on the door, and you thought, "Fuck, I've got to do something at this point. I better ring my mum," because you knew at that point where you put yourself. Because otherwise, I'm quite sure that Carly would have been found dead in that house, and he would have been nowhere to be seen.
Yeah. But didn't Leisha say that he was like, "Mammy was looking for her phone"?
Yeah, like I asked him, and I said,
wanted to get help.
Yeah, he actually told me. He told me, Mammy said, "Get Nana when, get Nana when." And I said, "Where was her phone? Her no phone, Nana. Her no phone. Her no phone." And he knew. And the thing about it is, he knew my friend's voice because he's been around him since he was born. So he knew his voice, and he would have come down the stairs to open that door for him. But he had somebody who was telling him to shut up.
He says
a 2.5-year-old doesn't put all that together. It's impossible. No. It's impossible.
Even to say she was looking for a phone, we all know in this day and age we're stuck to our phones. I'm sure Carly was, I am, everyone is. And the only way she'd been looking for, don't block that account please, the only way she'd been looking for her phone was to call for help. And if you really weren't trying to kill Carly, why would you have taken away her lifeline to the outside world? It makes no sense. I hope they do a full investigation. I hope they look into all the evidence. Because
I hope so, Hailey. I hope so. I hope so.
Even
Because
the little bit I can see is
yeah,
clear.
yeah, she did. Look, this is not a case where she was shot in the head and you have to go and try and find the evidence of looking for a gun and then trying to piece the gun into his hands or trying to find out whether the gun belonged to him or not. Like, this evidence is there in front of you. It's as plain as the nose on your face. You couldn't get any clearer. You know, you can't get any clearer evidence than that to say like something definitely wasn't right in that house all day long up to whatever time somebody knocked at the door.
They
You know?
even have to look into the previous domestic abuse, the control, and look into statistics, what's going on in society right now, the breakup violence. Like, most offenders who even would never ever try to take your life, as soon as you try to leave them and you take away the ultimate control, you're moving on, you're taking the children, they will come into your house and they will do this shit. They will take your life.
Yeah.
And he was praying that people would say, Carly's just another addict. That's what happens. But she's got you guys who are not going to let that happen.
And then decides to run into rehab himself for 6 months.
To hide. It's absolutely. What can we do to help apart from awareness right now? I know there's so much you can't do right now because you're waiting for inquest and you're kind of giving the police a bit of a chance to see if they do anything. People have asked me that and they've inboxed me and everything and they're asking me what can we do to help. Just the reposting of my video on TikTok and just coming out and look, if there's girls out there or if there's women out there and they find themselves in a situation. I know it's frustrating. I know it's frustrating when you go for help and you get blocked. But find someone in your family, somebody. Get out of that situation. I've been there myself and I know I left that situation knowing that if I didn't, I was coming out in a body bag. You have an instinct yourself. Get away from the situation. Please just listen to people when they're telling you it's not good, and like at the end of the day, it's just making awareness around what can happen to young girls when they get caught up in these relationships and where it can end for them. 100%. We do have. We've interviewed so many parents on here, and who the daughter's been through domestic abuse from an early age. It ends in different ways. Whether we've covered a case recently, a lady drunk herself to death. She'd been trafficked and groomed. It was horrific. Carly, there's always a common theme of girls in society are being hurt. There's no help. Families are powerless. I mean, what can you do as a mother? You can advise her, you can tell her, you have to pick up the piece with the grandchildren. But what can we really do if the police aren't there, the powers to be aren't backing up these women? And it's so hard. The average woman takes 7 times to leave because she goes to the police, nothing's done. And in this case, Carly, the fact that she'd been in rehab, it's probably been a bit easier for him to try and set this kind of situation up.
Of course, because yourself, you have when they leave, then you have the bashing of and I know that for myself. I know by the messages, even she was out of rehab a few days, and there was a message put up on social media, calling her every name under the sun and saying she was a disgrace and all this crack, and that she'll never get to see her kids again, and karma's a bitch and it's going to come around and it is going to get you eventually. To me, it's a threat. That's a threat. You show that to somebody in authority and they're looking at you and they're going, well, there's nothing there's nothing in it that says anything. It says it. It says it.
He said he's never going to see her kids again. Now she's dead and can't see her kids again. So you need to put 2 and 2 together and realise this man's selling these tablets. Carly's dead from these tablets. Yeah. And he's making the facts before. She hated him. She hated him. She loved Owen. She wasn't going to have him in her house. She wasn't going to be around him. Just get to know Carly a little bit. If they had conversations like I've had with you today, to meet Owen and speak to you both, see his face light up, know exactly how you were supporting the relationship, they would be quite clear about she was not going to be in the house with this man.
No.
She wasn't going to choose to be. There was no reason for it. I'm so sorry for your loss, and literally, obviously, everyone, if you can follow Casey and you can follow Owen, and they're both posting about Carly at the moment, and if you can repost the videos, and we're going to wait a second to see. I'll post some videos as well, actually, and I will try and tell Carly's story, but I'm going to wait at the moment till we name anyone or until we kind of see what the guards are doing.
Look,
but if it comes to it,
I haven't named any names. I've told the story. I've told the truth, and it is the truth, and that's exactly what happened that night. I'm not the only one that knows the truth. There's more than me. There's more than Owen. There's plenty more there that know the truth, that were there that night. They know the truth, and that includes the authorities that were in the house. They know the truth. Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's not just us saying it, but I want my daughter to have justice not just for her, but for her 2 children, for them,
Yeah.
for when they're older, that they realise that their mum didn't just come out of rehab and take an overdose and die.
Yeah.
Leave her, you know.
Really important. And like anything I've said today, like you guys have given me the evidence and I put it together into a story. Like I've never met Carly. I've got no fight in this. I don't know the other man. It's from what I can see from criminology, from domestic abuse and the studying that I've done, that something more has happened here. And there's so many red flags in this story. Nothing makes sense. And for most, like for you guys, even it'd be so much easier if it was really sad. Carly was struggling. She come out. She overdosed. It's really sad. Like no one wants her to have been killed.
And this is the thing, Hailey. And I say this. Look, I lost my son at 21 to suicide. I can sit here and tell you, yes, it was very hard, and it is very hard. But I can say to you that it's not that you accept it, but you learn to live with it.
Yeah.
Because at the end, I understand that was, you know, that whatever was in that second of madness pushed him to do that. If Carly had come out and relapsed and gone and overdosed, I would be the first one to sit here and tell you that that's what happened. I'd be coming out with a different story because I'd be trying to help somebody else's child.
People, yeah.
But that's not what happened to my daughter. And for a year, that's what we've had to say happened to my daughter.
Yeah.
But there comes a point where, as a mother, you have to tell the truth, and the truth is the truth, and that's the truth.
It's about Carly having her voice, isn't it? It's about Carly's voice having her truth, but it's also about the children being able to hear the truth and know Carly's story. And there's lots of lessons to be learned in Carly's story, and I'm sure she'll go on to save a lot of other people, whether it be about addiction, DV, opening up to people. And I just want to say to you both, like Carly, we've obviously fallen in love with her for you, like watching Owen light up, and you as well. And one thing I'll say is how brave she was. Like, I don't know, even when I've been struggling, I've always had the voice to tell people and call people and say, like, this is a bad day for me. She was someone who obviously wanted to live and was struggling, but was taking strides every day to get to the goal of the happily ever after with Owen and the kids. Like, just what a loss, man. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you, Hailey. And thank you so much for having us on.
Yeah, thank you very much, Hailey.
Thank you.
I'd
I'd love to keep in contact with you both, and I will contact you tomorrow, Joanne, about where we go from here, because I would like to do some videos. I would like to get more people over following you and your story, and Owen as well. And if you can keep in contact with me, and if the guards aren't doing anything, then I'll get to the stage where I'll start naming people. I don't care, like my platform, my voice, nothing to do with you guys. But something has to happen for Carly to get justice. And I'll probably make a video tomorrow anyway of my own back and just point out all the red flags that I can see in this case, which make me think that it's a criminal case. But if I can keep in contact with you guys, that'd be amazing. I'll message you both tomorrow. But thank you so much for coming on. Has everyone had time to follow both accounts? Has everyone had time to follow them both so you can follow the journey? And I know loads of people have asked what Carly looks like. And if you go over to her mum's profile, you will see pictures of her. She's absolutely beautiful. And if you can repost all their videos and just do whatever you can to support this family, please.
Thank you
so much. Thank you.
I'm tired. He's working hard all week. He's ready for sleep.
Hard all week. I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning again.
Yeah.
We'll let you get some sleep. But thank you guys so much, and thank you for sharing Carly with us. And
of course, no problem. Thanks very much for having us on.
Thank you.